Hillsborough families demand justice. Labor's broken promise explained. In a heartfelt plea, families who lost loved ones in the Hillsborough disaster are calling on government ministers to fully enact the Hillsborough Law. This comes as Labor has acknowledged that it will not fulfill its commitment to present this crucial legislation to Parliament by the 36th anniversary of the tragedy. On February 3, Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood and Cabinet Office Minister Nick Thomas Simons participated in a family listening day organized by the campaign group Inquest, which was funded by the Ministry of Justice. The event aimed to gather the voices of those affected by the disaster, and the report titled All or Nothing reflects a strong consensus among attendees. The government must uphold its promise to prevent future cover-ups by enforcing a legally binding duty of candor for public authorities. Despite the emotional testimonies shared during the event, Labor has been revising key aspects of the proposed law. Following a backlash from the families, Keir Starmer is now expected to break his pledge to introduce the law by April 15, the date marking the 36th anniversary of the Hillsborough disaster. In a letter co-signed by Mahmood and Thomas Simons, families were informed that this promise would not be kept. This controversy arises after years of Labor's support for the Hillsborough Law, which was initially drafted by the family's barrister, Pete Weatherby KC, and first presented in Westminster by Andy Burnham in 2017. Starmer has made repeated commitments to introduce the law, including during his speeches at Labour conferences in Liverpool in 2022 and 2024. He stated, "For too long this city has been let down. When Labour wins the next election, one of my first acts as Prime Minister will be to put the Hillsborough Law on the statute book." In 2024, Starmer reiterated this promise, framing it as a law for Liverpool, a law for the 97 victims of the Hillsborough disaster, and a law for those affected by other injustices, including the post office scandal, the infected blood crisis, the Windrush scandal, and the Grenfell fire. Families of victims from these tragedies attended the listening day, sharing their experiences of the egregious cover-ups and lies perpetuated by public officials. They emphasized the urgent need for strict enforcement of the duty of candor, demanding accountability for public officials who obstruct justice. The Hillsborough Law, as drafted by Weatherby, outlines the legal framework for this duty of candor, and includes a vital provision for public funding of legal representation that matches that of public authorities during inquests and inquiries. However, despite Starmer's assurances, families have learned that the government's revised draft leans towards a charter for public authorities without robust legal enforcement and lacks the necessary funding for legal representation. A recent government briefing suggested that the draft law could lead to civil servants facing prosecution for minor infractions, which has incited outrage among families, who have always understood that criminal penalties would apply to police or public officials who mislead the public. In their recent letter, Mahmood and Thomas Simons reaffirmed the government's commitment to a Hillsborough law that includes a legal duty of candor for public servants and criminal penalties for non-compliance, stating, "We are not walking away." Margaret Aspinall, whose son James was one of the 97 unlawfully killed at Hillsborough, expressed her determination after hearing the stories of other families. "I am more resolved than ever to demand that the Hillsborough law presented to Parliament is all or nothing." Deborah Coles, director of Inquest, remarked that the disappointing delay should be viewed as an urgent opportunity to ensure the law is enacted in its entirety. "The evidence in our report is too compelling and stark to ignore. Anything less will be a betrayal."